welcome back. So I wanted to start this weekly videos about what I've been reading. I know I said previously that I'm not going to do reviews on the channel specifically. However, I wanted to do kind of like a weekly look at what I've been reading, because sometimes there's a lot I've been reading in a week. I listen to books as well while I'm working instead of like listening to music like a lot of people do. So I'll listen to books. So that means that it's like twice as many sometimes that I can read in a week. However, this first one, I'm going to do everything I've read so far in September. And then following weeks, it'll just be for the week. So there's quite a few for this week, but I just want to let you know kind of what it is, who it's by, kind of a rating out of 10, 1 to 10 on what I thought of it. So let's get started. There's some of the books I've had to return because they're library books and that kind of thing. So I will add an image right about here of the book itself, since I don't have it physically like some of them. So let's get started. The first one is called Fear City. It's by F. Paul Wilson. It's a prequel series to his Repairman Jack series, which is an amazing book series. It's one of my favorite. It's horror. So there's that. Fear City is the last one in this prequel trilogy. I give this one a 6 out of 10. It wasn't my favorite. However, it's the last in that series leading up to the original Repairman Jack. So it's definitely something you should read. If you are reading the series, obviously you'll want to read the last one. And then the second one that I read is called The Haunting of Gabriel, Ashe by Dan Poblocki. It's a middle grade book. It's also horror, and he does a lot of books about hauntings and that kind of thing, and that's what this one is. This book I gave also a 6 out of 10. It's good. It's worth a read if you're younger and like the horror series. So if you have a teenager or a preteen who likes horror, then this is definitely a good book and a good author for them to read. Then we have Still Life by Jacqueline West. It is the last book in this series about a young girl who moves into a new house and is able to travel through the paintings in her home. It's a good series. It's definitely something younger middle grade readers would like. I gave this one also a 6 out of 10. It was good, but not the best in the series. The first couple are definitely better, but if you do read the series, then you're definitely going to want to read the last one. And then to the first set of audiobooks that I listened to. So when I listen to audiobooks, there's something I've already read previously, so it's kind of like a reread when I listen to them. These books are the first and second book in the series. It's The Wizard for Hire, as well as Apprentice Needed. The final book just came out. I am going to be reading that one soon. These are by Obert, Skye, who also wrote 11 Thump series for middle grade readers. Those are amazing. These ones are also really good. I gave the books itself an 8 out of 10. It's really fun. You kind of get some kind of, it's like wizards, so you think magic, but you're not really sure if it is or not. But they're definitely a great read. These books were narrated by Kirby Heyborne. I gave his rating a 6 out of 10. It was good. However, there were some moments that I wasn't a huge fan of, mostly when in the book the characters were said to be screaming or yelling. It got to be a little much, but overall it was a great listen and I certainly enjoyed them. And then we have Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames. It's the second book in the Band series. It's a fantasy series about groups that form bands. They're not music groups. They fight monsters and demons and that kind of thing. And so the first book in the series is absolutely amazing. I loved it. This book I give a 6 out of 10. It wasn't as good as the first one. It was definitely good, but there was a lot of things that I didn't quite like. But if you do read the first one and then you read this one, you have to read this one. There is supposedly a third book in the series. There's not any information yet on when that comes out, but I'm definitely going to be reading that when it does. So if you like the first book, then definitely read this one. The first one is called Kings of the Wild. It's amazing. And then we have The Lost Book of the White. This is actually the Red Scrolls of Magic. It's the first book in the Eldest Curses series. So I wanted to show this one because it's basically the same thing. It's just the sequel to this book. So The Lost Book of the White is the second book in a new Shadowhunter series, and I love the Shadowhunters. It's definitely one of my favorite series, and I gave The Lost Book of the White a 7 out of 10. It was really good. Don't get me wrong. It was amazing. I loved it. It's Shadowhunters, but like taking into account like how much I love some of the other books in the series or the encompassing universe, I had to knock it down a little because it wasn't my favorite. I think this particular series is my least favorite. That being said, I absolutely love it, and I'll read it like the second anything Shadowhunters comes out, and this one is a definite read for like anybody ever. Okay, so then we have Salvation in Death by J.D. Robb. It's the part of the In Death series. I'm not sure what number it is. There's a lot of books in the series, like over 50. I'm definitely not that far in. I'm only at like 20 something. But Salvation in Death, I gave a 7 out of 10. It was good. It's a bit predictable. It was easy to tell like kind of what was happening. And it's a definite read. If you like this series, then of course you have to keep reading it. It's still fun, entertaining. The characters are also great, and I love them so much, and that all the favorites are in this one, from Eve to Rourke, Peabody, McNabb, all the good ones. So definitely check it out if you like this series. And then the next one is also an audiobook. It's called Herbie by Rich Cohen. It was a short story on an Audible original that it's only in audio form. But this is about, he's a writer, an author, who took a creative writing class in college that went really horribly, and kind of like how he dealt with that, how his father got involved, and it's really good. You have to listen to it. Don't want to ruin it. I give that one an 8 out of 10. It's read by the author, and it's great. And then we have Blameless by Gail Carriger. This is the Parasol Protectorate series. It's really great. It's a bit sci-fi. It's a bit like supernatural fantasy. It's a little of everything. It's set in the 1800s in London, and you kind of have the like the clockwork kind of feel to it. It's really great. There's vampires, werewolves, a little of everything. I gave this one an 8 out of 10. It's the third book in the series. So start with Soulless, which is number 1. All right, moving on. We have another audio book. This one is also an Audible original, which means it's only on Audible. It is called The Flying Flamingo Sisters. It's like a middle grade book for younger people. It is a really adorable book. It's about a group of sisters who, fly planes, and they set out to find their parents who have gone missing while flying. It's really fun, and I gave the book itself a 6 out of 10. Sorry, I forgot to tell you the author. The author's name is Seim. So 6 out of 10 on the book. Is a really good book. Don't get me wrong. It seems like a low number, but it's not. It's a definite read if you have younger kids. And the audio itself was done really well. I gave that an 8 out of 10. There were several different narrators, which is why I'm not going to list all of them, but you can go check it out and see who does it. And so it's really fun. It's like a production, almost like you're listening to a radio show. It's really cool. And then we have 2 more audiobooks that I listened to. They're the first and the second book in this Shadow House series by Dan Poblocki again. That's another horror series. This one is, the first book is The Gathering. The second is You Can't Hide. It's about a group of 13-year-olds who get trapped in a haunted house and them trying to find their way out. The books itself, I gave about a 6 out of 10. They're good. They're fun. Easy reads. and they were read by Dan Bittner, who I gave a 7 out of 10 for the production because he did fairly well. I mean, I wasn't sure at first, but the more I listened, the better it got. And then we have Fury's Goddess. Alex Archer, the pseudonym, is the books are ghost written by several different authors. It's a huge series. There's like over 50 books. This one, I'm not sure what this one is. I think I'm in the high 20s of the series, maybe the low 30s. Some are better than others. This one wasn't my favorite. It was, while well written, there was a lot of things going on that I didn't find believable, that things that happened that didn't need to happen, that kind of just like got thrown in there to add more pages to the book, that if you'd taken it out, the story would have ended up the same. And so there's that. I gave it a 5 out of 10 because it's not my favorite in the series. There's a lot of others that are a lot better. However, if you're reading the series as a whole, you don't have to read them all together. They're kind of like their own individual books, but it's kind of fun to read them all. There's lots of different characters, new characters in every series, in every book in the series. There are a few characters that return. I don't think any of the returning characters are in this one, and that might be why I wasn't a fan. Whenever certain characters are in it, I think I like it more, but it's definitely fun, quick, easy read. And then we have, I'm rereading a series that I read way back like in high school. It's called Twitches. It's books 3 and 4. They are Seeing is Deceiving and Dead Wrong. Book 3 and 4 in the series, and they're fun books. They don't hold up quite as well as some other books I read when I was in high school and younger, but they're still fun. They feel a bit dated, and I think that's why they're not as good. They don't quite hold up as much now as they did previously, but I'm still enjoying them. I gave these books 5 out of 10 because while they're fun, easy to read, and I'm gonna finish reading the series again, and they're not the best. In the first 2 that I read were a bit better, but we'll see what's going on. There's still some more in the series, and we'll see how well they hold up, and so we'll keep reading those. And then I listened to The Laughing Corpse, so I brought to show you the book I have, because I've read this book like 4 times, a lot. Laura K. Hamilton's Anita Blake series. This is book 2 in the series. I love this series. It's absolutely one of my favorites. Like I said, I've read it like 4 times, so it's an obvious must read. I gave it a 9 out of 10 for the book itself, and I gave the narrator production of it an 8 out of 10. It was done by Kimberly Alexis. I know that I think later in the series, I've listened to these once before, and I think somebody else narrates them further on in the series that I liked a little bit better, but she's still really good. She does really good with the voices and changing the voices and stuff like that. So if you enjoy listening to books, this is definitely one that you should listen to. And then I read Cement by Fyodor Gladkov. I originally read this book in college. I took a Russian literature class. This book is about Russia in the 1920s when socialism was going on in this book. It's really good. It kind of gives you a look at what was going on over in Russia at that time, and kind of how they were, I guess, living their lives. It's a really interesting book, and it's really good. I did enjoy reading it, which is why I read it again. I mean, it's a little hard to read at times because sometimes when you get like the older books, the classics, that kind of thing, it's a little harder to get into. I gave it a 6 out of 10 because it wasn't quite as easy to read as I remember it being. I feel like I liked it much better the first time going, so I gave it a little bit lower of a score. However, if you like these older books, these classic books, and stuff like that, and the historical, I mean, obviously it's not like historical in the sense that these people were real, but in the sense that these kind of things were happening. I believe it says it was the 20s. Yes, the 1920s in Russia. So if you like that kind of spot in history, then it's definitely something you should look into. And then we have another audiobook. It's called Will Wilder, Relic of Perilous Falls. It's a series that follows Catholicism and kind of mystery of like relics and things like that, and if like demons and things like that were here and these relics could do magic, not magical, magical things, kind of like spiritual things, like, and that kind of thing. And so the kid, Will Wilder, is 13, I believe, is trying to stop his town from being destroyed by demons by using holy relics and stuff like that with the Catholic Church. It's a really fun book. It was written by Raymond Arroyo. It was also read by him as well, and he did a really good job reading it. A lot of times when authors read books, their books, it's not quite as good, but this one actually was done really well. I gave the book an 8 out of 10, and I plan on listening to the second and third book in the series as well. So we'll continue on with that. And then I listened to Vampire Kisses by Ellen Schreiber. This is one of those teen vampire books it's kind of a fun read. It's really easy to read, but it's like it plays on the kind of like the cheesy corniness of vampires and teen vampires and that kind of thing. It follows Raven, who's obsessed with vampires, and she falls for a new guy in town who everyone thinks is a vampire. So this was read by, who was this read by? This was read by, wow, I didn't write the whole name down. I will put it up on the screen afterwards. This was read by, name here, because I don't have the name written down, so I can't give it to you right now, but I'll put it up on the screen. I gave the book a 5 out of 10 because it wasn't quite as good as I remember the first time reading it. It was a little more cheesy than I remember. I gave the audio and the narrator a 6 out of 10 because it was well done. It was fun to listen to. And then the next book I read was The Crimean War, a History by Orlando Figes. This is a book that talks about the historical events of the Crimean War in Russia with Turkey, France, and the UK. It's really interesting. It tells you how it happened, what led up to it, and kind of how it went about. It's kind of a history type books are a little harder for me to read. While they're interesting and I find them entertaining, sometimes I get a little bored with just facts of something. I gave this book a 5 out of 10. I found it was well written, well researched, and fun to read, but it's just a little harder for me to read history type books. But if you like those kind of books, then this is a definite type of book that you should read because it really is quite fun. I mean, because this is definitely a really good book. And then the final book I read is Sibs by F. Paul Wilson. And so this is by the same guy at the start of the video who wrote Fear City and Repairman Jack. This is it's a standalone book. It's about a young woman named Cara Wade who goes to the city after her identical twin sister is killed. And at first it seems like just normal things are going on, but then you have to take into account that it's F. Paul Wilson, which means something horror is gonna happen. Something supernatural is gonna happen. I'm pretty sure he doesn't do books that aren't, because that's kind of like where it went, but it's really good. Really good. I gave this one an 8 out of 10. It was really well done. It was well written. It was originally written in the 90s, so you can definitely see it's dated as to that. A lot of things that are going on and they're talking about are definitely not like right now. And you can tell that it was written in the 90s, but it's still really good. It's really well written, and it's well done. I really enjoyed it. So that is the really long first video of my weekly download with what I've been reading. Going forward, since it'll just be like a week's worth of books, it'll definitely be not quite as long, but I kind of didn't want to like miss any good books, and I really wanted to start with some of the good ones that I enjoy reading, so I just decided to do all of September. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about the different books that I've been reading and what you should and shouldn't be reading. If you want to read a little bit more review wise of these books, head on over to my Instagram page. That is down below in the comment section. Go ahead and go down to my Instagram page that's in the description down below, and you can read more reviews on the books that I've been reading, including several of these ones. I'm a little behind on that, so they might not be out yet, but it's definitely more in depth on what I liked about it than what we saw here. So well, thanks for listening, staying with me. Stay tuned next week for my weekly download, and more book talks coming soon. All right, till then.